everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina. I'm a life transformation coach, and today we're going to be talking about something that I find really fascinating, and it's called confirmation bias. Now, this is a bias that none of us are above. It affects every single one of our lives, and the key is to kind of have an awareness of this bias. So that's what we're really going to talk about today. So maybe you've noticed that once you have formed an opinion about something, that it's very difficult to change your mind, even when there's kind of some evidence to support that maybe that opinion is faulty in some way. Same thing goes for first impressions. Once you've had a first impression of someone, it's very challenging to really change your opinion about them, even when we start to see that maybe we were wrong about that. It's very hard to actually change that opinion. And that is because of this bias. And we can think of this bias as really our brain's tendency to only seek out knowledge that supports or information that supports what we already believe. So it's our tendency to kind of tune out anything that's in conflict with our beliefs or opinions. And so this affects every aspect of our life, of course, but one really simple way that I can illustrate this is by looking at politics. Now, most people have a very strong opinion about politics. They have a political opinion that's going to sway to one side or the other. And because of this bias, it makes it very difficult for us to think critically, even when we are presented information that could be very important, if we feel that it's in conflict with whichever party that we want to support. And unfortunately, this is why it's so easy for fake news to circulate, because our brain wants all our beliefs to be in harmony, and we want all our information and beliefs to be, congruent, that we would rather block out information that could be potentially true if it allows us to keep our viewpoint, then, really use critical thought and, consider this piece of information that comes forward. And we can see this even with the type of news that we watch. We are only going to watch, in most cases, a news channel that supports our opinion. We really want to only have the news delivered in a way that we feel is going to support our belief system. And again, it is our brain that's really encouraging us to do this, because we don't want to have to give a lot of critical thought. We want to be efficient. So once we've already made a decision about something, it's just so much easier for our brain to kind of seek out information that just confirms that belief, so we can just kind of go on with our life. And this can become particularly prevalent when we are talking about things that we kind of infuse with our identity. And politics is one of those things, as is something like religion, or maybe something that has to do with our profession or occupation, or even our hobby or a sports team, something that we feel passionate about, something that we feel is part of our identity. It's going to be very difficult for us to consider outside opinions, because we feel that if this viewpoint that we have is threatened in some way, that's kind of threatening our identity, especially if it's something that we're very vocal about. We don't want to kind of lose face if we've been, let's go back to politics, really supporting this political candidate, whatever side it's on, and this really negative thing comes about that person. It's going to be much easier for us to discount it and say, well, they just always try to make this person look bad, or this couldn't possibly be true, or there's no evidence for this, I'll believe it when I see it. Whereas if we had that same information about the opposite candidate, we're going to believe it without question. It's going to be something that is, very easy for us to get on board with, because it's in alignment with our beliefs. So how can we kind of fight against this confirmation bias? Because we can see that it can have a lot of negative implications in our life, because it kind of blocks critical thinking a lot of times. It also keeps our viewpoint very narrow. It keeps us from growing as a person, and sometimes it can perpetuate things that really aren't true in our life, because if we're always kind of seeking out that information that is in alignment with our viewpoint, we're really shutting out other information that could be very, very important and, could really change our opinion if we were able to really let that information in. Really kind of keeps us in a bubble. So I think the first thing that we can do is just to have that awareness that this is the case and kind of analyze our life and see all the different ways that could be happening in our life. So for example, let's say we have a coworker and we've had that initial impression that this person is a jerk. We really don't like this person, but they bring us lunch one day. Now, if we have that confirmation bias that this person's a jerk, we're going to take that information and interpret it in a negative way that's in alignment with our beliefs. So we're going to say, look at this jerk trying to impress me by bringing me lunch, or, he thinks he can try to look good, and we're going to find a way that makes sense with what we already believe. We're going to kind of, be able to block that in that way. But if we had a bias in the other direction, where we had a good first impression of that person, we're going to think, oh, what a sweetheart. Look at this. He brought me lunch. That was so thoughtful. So you can see how this can affect everything. And it does. It absolutely affects everything. So we can just be aware that this is happening. We can kind of look at the things that we have opinions about, especially strong opinions, and just be careful that we aren't really blocking out important information, or that we aren't failing to consider other points of view. We are not always going to be right. Oftentimes first impressions are entirely wrong. Maybe this person that gave us a bad first impression, maybe something terrible happened to that person that day. Maybe, maybe they were even in a car accident or something that morning. Who knows? We have no idea. But we always have to remain open. So we must have that awareness, but then we have to actually be a little bit proactive, which is to challenge our thoughts and ask ourselves, why is it so threatening to us to consider the opposite opinion? Allow ourselves to consider other opinions and to seek out other sources of information. And it's important that we do that, because a lot of times when we aren't open to that, if we're not finding the information that we are looking for, sometimes we can start to look at sources that are not credible at all, or just very odd sources of information, because our brain is really craving, again, to find something of support. So that's also how, sometimes we ask, how can they be reading this weird blog or watching these weird clips? And it's not that it's weird. It's that person is trying to seek out information that is supporting their belief. So we can understand how this is happening. So to prevent this, we need to make sure that we are considering other sources every once in a while. And it, again, doesn't have to just be about politics. We want to, watch something that is in conflict and ask ourselves some important questions. Is this something that could be true? We can also bounce ideas off of other people or play devil's advocate with ourselves. And that way we can kind of cross-check information and see if this is really the truest, most accurate information for us, and to try to tear out of that bubble a little bit, because the more we grow in life, believe it or not, the more we enjoy life, the more information that we find, it just really expands our world. And we need to always be open to the fact that opinions can and should change, when there is information to support it. So we don't want to just double down on something just because we believed it at one point. We don't want to just, perpetuate something to save face because at one time we said that we believed this, so we feel that we always have to believe this. No, everybody has the right to change their mind in circumstances that warrant it. So just know that it's okay to change your mind if that is, what is the outcome of having more critical thought or looking into other sources. But my invitation to you this week is to kind of try to pull out of that bubble a little bit, evaluate your life and see where confirmation bias might be affecting you and what areas seem to be the worst offenders. So just some food for thought today. I hope you found it interesting. I find confirmation bias to be extremely interesting, and it's almost comical when we look at our life and see how much we are truly guilty of this, at least for my own self. So it's something that I need to be aware of, or I have that tendency, as all of us do, to again seek out information of support for the things that we like or believe. So I truly hope you found this video interesting and helpful. If you did, please like it, share it with someone else who may need to hear the same message today, and also do become a subscriber if you aren't one already. We definitely want you to stay connected, and I thank you so much for spending time with me today. Have an absolutely amazing day.